August 27, 2024. The courtroom seemed to hold its breath as Wade Wilson stood, shackled, waiting to hear the words that would define the rest of his existence. His face, marked by tattoos that had fueled endless online arguments, his crimes that had torn two families apart, and a trial that had turned into a national spectacle, all collapsed into this single moment of judgment. The judge's voice echoed through the room, calm and procedural, as the sentence was delivered. Death for the murders of Melton and Diane Ruiz. The response was instant and divided. Some wept openly, overwhelmed by grief and relief. Others sat rigid, convinced they were witnessing justice in its most decisive form. To many watching, this felt like closure, the ultimate punishment for an unforgivable act, a clean ending to a story defined by violence. But that sense of finality was an illusion. What most people in that room, and most people watching from afar, failed to grasp was that this sentence did not conclude anything. It initiated something far longer, far darker, and far more psychologically corrosive than a single moment of death. Wade Wilson was not stepping toward an immediate end. He was stepping into years, possibly decades, of enforced waiting. A life reduced to anticipation, a future replaced by a countdown. And as this story unfolds, you may question whether the death penalty delivers justice or prolongs suffering. Establishing responsibility and context is unavoidable. Wade Wilson was convicted for the murders of two women in October of 2019. The evidence presented at trial was extensive, detailed, and decisive. A jury reviewed that evidence, deliberated, and returned guilty verdicts on every charge brought before them. Nothing in this examination is intended to excuse his behavior, soften the reality of his crimes, or diminish the devastation inflicted on the families of Melton and Diane Ruiz. Their loss is permanent. Their grief is justified. Their demand for accountability is unquestionable. The justice system evaluated the facts and imposed the most severe sentence available under the law. That sentence carries a symbolic weight that suggests finality. But symbolism and reality are not the same thing. The death penalty is often spoken about as if it is a single moment. A switch flipped, a life ended, a story closed. In reality, it functions very differently. Wade Wilson was not executed after sentencing. He was not taken away to die within days or months. Instead, he was absorbed into a system designed not to end life quickly, but to extend it under controlled conditions until the state determines the appropriate time to intervene. The punishment did not remove his existence. It stripped it of direction. It removed autonomy, erased future possibility, and reduced his identity to a person whose sole purpose is to wait. Public belief surrounding capital punishment is shaped by distance. Many people view the death penalty as the ultimate deterrent, the most proportionate response to extreme violence. Life imprisonment, by comparison, is often framed as lenient, as allowing someone to continue breathing, eating, thinking, and existing. This contrast is repeated so often that it becomes accepted truth. Death is final. Prison is merely endurance. That assumption influences juries, legislation, and cultural attitudes, but it rests on a misunderstanding of how capital punishment actually unfolds. Execution is not an event. It is a prolonged process that can last decades. During that time, the condemned individual does not live in the way most people understand living. They exist in a suspended psychological state defined by isolation, restriction, and constant anticipation. This is not comparable to serving a life sentence. It is a distinct form of punishment that operates on the mind rather than the body. Following sentencing, Wade Wilson was transferred to Florida State Prison in Rayford, where death row inmates are housed. Death row is separate from the general prison population. It is a controlled environment within a controlled environment, governed by heightened security protocols and rigid routines. Inmates are classified as maximum security not because of their conduct inside the facility, but because of the sentence itself. The label follows them regardless of behavior. Wilson's cell measures roughly 6 feet by 9 feet. Inside it is a metal bed with a thin mattress, a combined stainless steel sink and toilet, and bare concrete walls. There are no personal comforts, no decorations, no sense of individuality. The door is solid steel, punctuated only by a narrow slot for meals and a small window for observation. This cell is where he spends approximately 23 hours each day. The remaining hour is designated as recreation, though the term is misleading. It does not involve social interaction or meaningful physical activity. It consists of being escorted alone to another enclosed area, often a concrete space with high walls that block any view of the outside world. He moves alone, exercises alone, returns alone. This routine repeats day after day with minimal variation. The psychological consequences of this level of isolation are severe. Human cognition depends on interaction, stimulation, and environmental feedback. When those elements are removed, the mind begins to deteriorate. Research into prolonged solitary confinement consistently shows increased rates of anxiety, depression, paranoia, and cognitive impairment. Memory becomes unreliable. Perception distorts. Some individuals experience hallucinations. Time loses structure. Days blur together until they become indistinguishable. Wade Wilson is subjected to these conditions continuously. His appeals process, like most capital cases in Florida, is lengthy. The average duration exceeds 15 years. Some inmates wait far longer. Throughout that entire period, the conditions remain largely unchanged. Each day is spent in isolation, uncertainty, and the knowledge that the outcome is predetermined. The question is not whether death will occur, but when. This distinction separates death row from life imprisonment. Individuals serving life without parole face severe restrictions, but they retain elements of social existence. They interact with others. They establish routines. They participate in limited programs. They receive visits. They exist in the present. Their punishment is confinement. Death row replaces confinement with anticipation. Wade Wilson does not experience time as something to be served. He experiences it as something to be endured until termination. Every legal motion is about scheduling rather than outcome. Every appeal concerns timing rather than possibility. This creates a psychological burden that life imprisonment does not impose. He is not living through years. He is counting down toward an endpoint that has already been decided. Living under a death sentence means waking each day with certainty and uncertainty intertwined. The state has declared that he will die. The method is known. The location is known. The process is outlined. The date remains undefined. This uncertainty is not merciful. It is destabilizing. The mind cannot rest when the end is inevitable but unpredictable. Every sound in the corridor carries potential meaning. Every interaction with staff could signal progression toward execution. Execution dates may be scheduled and then delayed. Each time, the individual must prepare mentally for death, only to have that preparation interrupted and extended. This cycle can repeat multiple times. The condemned person rehearses their own death repeatedly, never knowing which rehearsal will be final. Life imprisonment allows for adaptation. Death row prevents it. A person serving life can still construct meaning within limitations. They can pursue education, maintain relationships, and find structure. Death row removes those possibilities. There is nothing to work toward, no improvement to achieve, no future to imagine. The sentence exists solely to preserve the individual until the moment of execution. In this sense, death row is not life. It is a state of suspended existence with a scheduled termination. It is not designed to rehabilitate or reintegrate. It is designed to maintain biological function while psychological erosion takes place. Human connection on death row exists, but it is filtered through layers of restriction and finality. When visits occur, they take place through reinforced glass. Conversations happen through telephones. Physical contact is prohibited. There are no embraces, no handshakes, no comfort beyond words transmitted through barriers. Every visit is monitored. Every exchange is recorded. And every goodbye carries the unspoken understanding that it could be the last. Letters become essential, but they are screened, delayed, and limited. Communication is rationed. The outside world continues to move forward while the condemned remains stationary. Friends age. Family members change. Relationships weaken under the strain of distance and inevitability. Life progresses elsewhere. On death row, time does not progress. It accumulates. Each interaction serves as a reminder that the individual no longer participates in the world. They exist adjacent to it, watching from behind glass. Wade Wilson carries an additional burden that compounds this isolation. His case attracted widespread attention. His appearance became a focal point of online discourse. His face circulated across platforms, transformed into a symbol, a meme, a spectacle. Many people who were unfamiliar with the victims knew his name because of viral coverage. This notoriety follows him into prison. Staff recognize him. Guards are aware of his case. Other inmates know who he is. He cannot disappear into anonymity. This infamy ensures that his crimes are constantly reinforced. Each legal development, each media reference, reintroduces his actions to public consciousness. He is not perceived as an individual. He is reduced to a case file, a cautionary example, a representation of something society condemns. His identity is permanently fused with his worst acts. There is no separation, no opportunity to redefine himself within the confines of incarceration. Even within the controlled environment of death row, safety is not guaranteed. Prison systems are imperfect. Errors occur. Protocols fail. Transfers happen. Individuals convicted of violent crimes, particularly those involving women, are often targeted within prison culture. Violence against such inmates is sometimes viewed as justified. Wade Wilson exists with the awareness that he is broadly despised, not only by society but by those confined near him. Vigilance becomes constant. Threat assessment never stops. This is not irrational fear. It is a survival mechanism shaped by environment. The families of Melton and Diane Ruiz continue to live with the consequences of his actions. Their suffering did not conclude with the verdict or the sentence. It persists daily and will persist indefinitely. Wade Wilson is aware of this reality. He understands that nothing he does can repair the harm caused. He cannot undo the trauma. He cannot restore what was taken. Whether he experiences remorse is secondary to the permanence of the damage. That awareness becomes another layer of punishment. It exists without resolution, replayed internally without relief. Execution, when it eventually occurs, will not represent the peak of punishment. It will mark the end of a process that has unfolded over years through isolation, anticipation, and psychological decline. Capital punishment does not rely on death alone. It relies on prolonged waiting. The individual is kept alive specifically to be killed later. Existence becomes instrumental. Life is preserved not for its own sake, but to sustain suffering until the designated moment arrives. Wade Wilson is in his early 30s. Based on typical appellate timelines, he could remain on death row for 2 or 3 more decades. That means decades of waking in the same cell, following the same routine, facing the same walls, and knowing that none of it leads anywhere except to an execution chamber. This is not rehabilitation. It is not correction. It is endurance stretched across time. Life imprisonment removes freedom. Death row removes future. One confines the body. The other confines the mind. A person serving life can still exist within a narrative. A person on death row exists outside of narrative, waiting for termination. The distinction matters. It forces a reconsideration of what punishment is intended to accomplish. The death penalty is often defended as swift justice. In practice, it is anything but swift. It is slow, procedural, and psychologically consuming. It replaces closure with prolonged uncertainty. It transforms time itself into an instrument of punishment. Each day becomes a reminder of inevitability. Each delay extends suffering rather than alleviating it. This reality complicates the moral framework surrounding capital punishment. It challenges the assumption that execution represents the harshest possible sentence. It raises questions about whether forcing someone to live without future, purpose, or resolution constitutes a deeper form of cruelty than confinement alone. Wade Wilson's experience does not offer easy answers. It does not ask for sympathy. It demands examination. It exposes the mechanics of a system that punishes not only through death, but through waiting, through isolation, through the erosion of identity over time. When the courtroom empties and attention fades, the sentence continues to operate, not as a single act, but as an ongoing process, one that unfolds quietly, day after day, behind concrete walls and steel doors. This is the reality of death row, not an ending, but a prolonged descent toward one. Ethical reflection. The question still lingers: is the death penalty truly the most severe punishment a justice system can deliver? Or is it a sentence designed to stretch suffering across time by forcing a person to live without a future, without purpose, and under the constant shadow of an inevitable death? Wade Wilson's existence on death row does not provide easy conclusions. It does not simplify morality or offer comfort, but it does force us to confront what punishment actually looks like once the courtroom is empty and the verdict has been spoken. Closing and viewer engagement. Now I want to hear from you. Do you believe the death penalty is harsher than life imprisonment? Or do you believe spending decades behind bars without parole is the greater punishment? Has understanding the reality of death row changed how you view capital punishment, or has it confirmed what you already felt? Share your thoughts in the comments. Point 1: truth remains unavoidable. Wade Wilson will never regain his freedom. He will never outrun the consequences of his actions. Every day he continues to breathe is another day spent facing the harm he caused and the system's response to it. This is not sympathy. This is not justification. This is examination. And this is what death penalty becomes: